New York Post and Puck News are reporting that Bari Weiss will be named the editor-in-chief of CBS News as soon as Monday.
Paramount Skydance, CBS's parent company, will also reportedly acquire Weiss's news outlet, the Free Press. That deal is expected to be valued at $150 million. A source told the Post, however, that the timing of the announcement can change.
Puck News' Dylan Byers confirmed the news in a tweet. He said that Weiss will indeed be the editor-in-chief, and what some say is an interesting twist, she will reportedly report directly to David Ellison, the owner of Paramount Skydance. The Post reports that this means Weiss will not report to CBS News' president, Tom Sabrowski, who himself reports to the chair of TV media at Paramount Skydance. Sources also tell the outlet that the Free Press will remain a standalone property and that it's unclear if it will ever be integrated with CBS Digital.
Now, many on the left aren't too happy with the decision. Journalist Mehdi Hassan, for instance, wrote on X, quote, "The same people who complained about liberal bias at the main TV networks when they were never run by anyone as ideologically biased and as polarizing as Bari Weiss will have nothing to say now about this." And Left Hook Substack writer Wajid Ali wrote, "I can't talk today, the end of CBS News."
Meanwhile, others are a bit more positive. Pirate Wire's editor-in-chief Mike Solana wrote, "What Barry, Nellie, and their whole team at Free Press accomplished is obviously impressive. Not only the great writing, but the smart business sense. And now, through CBS, a potentially transformative impact. A well-deserved and rare huge victory in media." And podcaster Stephen Miller, not the Trump official, wrote, "I think it's fascinating she built a completely independent media empire and is deciding to go back to sort of attempt to rehab corporate media she herself made obsolete."
I had a kind of different perspective. We talked about this, I think, once before, that I was actually happy to see people with independent entities grow in this way and see them be embraced in a time where television is in a major transition and digital is on the rise in major ways, including podcasting, social media, the rise of YouTube, everything. And so trying to figure out how to find the power players to help a place like CBS that's third in the rankings behind NBC and ABC is a great move for them to see what the next step looks like. I also understand that when people who usually or who have worked independently and built something massive like Bari Weiss has come into a company and they're folded in and have to report to too many different cooks in the kitchen, that can be a recipe for disaster for somebody who has led to the $100 million mark, I believe, with some free thought and autonomy to lead with, I'm sure, a group of leaders that she consults with to make sure she's making the right decisions. So to have somebody that's reporting then to the news chief and doing this, I understand why they would have her report directly to Skydance and Paramount. I also understand that there is a president of news still in place that reports directly to Paramount and Skydance. And so they can have conversation as peers as opposed to her being their subordinate. And I think that would cause enormous friction. And I think that's a good thing because if Tom, believe his name is, who's the president of CBS News, has one thought and one clear guidance for how something is going, and Bari Weiss comes in with another thought as somebody who left the New York Times because she thought that they weren't covering the full story and had many critiques of mainstream media. To me, that's a great recipe for a relationship that'll be conversational in nature and figure out what the future of CBS News looks like. I am cautiously optimistic, but I do understand that also at CBS News, they put someone in place, and I can't remember his name right now, but he used to be an ambassador in Trump's first term to now kind of comb through and make sure that the news is fairly represented. And I think when that person who does that type of job is in that position and an ally, let's say, of President Trump, that's the concerning thing to me more than Bari Weiss bringing this innovative project over there. So I just want to make sure that the news is still autonomous in the same way that Free Press and her sites will still be autonomous. CBS News should still be allowed to operate in a way that tells the stories.
Yeah, the person you're referencing, I apologize, I can't remember his name right now, but I did look into him after he was announced to be taking over that position. And he kind of struck me as sort of like a moderate Republican guy who's just really focused on the Ukraine issue and wasn't really a huge player in the first administration. I don't even know if he still talks to the president or is close to him at all. Perhaps they are, but it didn't strike me as they're throwing this MAGA guy in there.
Yeah, I didn't read anything like, oh my God, MAGA fan, but I just was like, oh, if your friend if we work together, and I'm like, listen, check this out for me. like there's an inclination to respond now that you have a relationship.
Yeah. So on the Bari Weiss point, I would also describe myself as cautiously optimistic. Look, I don't think things can get much worse for CBS News in terms of the
harsh critic.
I am.
Much worse.
I mean, let's be honest. There's a poll that came out this week that trust in legacy media is at 8% now, which is a new historic low. Every year this poll comes out and it's a new historic low, like 8%. I think that's worse than Congress, or about tied with Congress. It's really bad. So, like, you can't, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And that's what the broadcast media networks have been doing. So they might as well try something new and see if they're able to get people to start trusting them again, to come back and actually rely on them for, you know, good storytelling, yes, but also just presenting full stories from both sides of the political aisle, which I think has really been missing for a long time. And recently, they had made this really boneheaded decision where they were able to poach Catherine Herridge, who is a national security reporter from Fox News, and bring her over to CBS to do her reporting there. And she's a very talented journalist with really, really in-depth knowledge of national security issues. She's got great sources. And she was trying to look into the Hunter Biden's laptop story and insinuated, she won't say it outright, but it's pretty clear what she means, that she has a reputation for being fast and thorough, and the idea that it took them 2 years to authenticate the laptop obviously doesn't really pass muster with that reputation. So they had basically hamstrung her ability to do that reporting. Later on, when they were doing layoffs, they let go of her, even though she was arguably their best reporter on staff, and then tried to seize her journalistic documents. So to go from that to putting Bari Weiss in as editor-in-chief in just a few years shows some level of self-reflection that is positive, I think, overall for CBS. Now, I have my quibbles with Bari Weiss, most notably when I think last time we talked about this, I mentioned that she had called Tulsi Gabbard a toady or a stooge for, I said at the time it was for Russia, but it was actually for Assad in Syria.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was about Russia.
It was Assad. So it's like, is she my favorite person in the world? Do I agree with her politically on like most things? No, probably not. But I do think she has good, newsroom experience and some kind of keen eye for what makes a good story. So that should be overall a good though for CBS.
The last few stories we talked about today had to do with the point that we're at as a society, and that I know that news folds into that. The conversations we see most prevalent on our timelines folds into that. I am actually excited about the idea of the fact that there's so many prominent, you can go Megyn Kelly, you can go to Chuck Todd, you can go to Don Lemon. There's so many people that are building their own platforms that are going to extremely and specifically and quickly call out, now that there's a microscope on CBS, anytime that reporting feels like state-run media, if it gets to that point. Hopefully we never get to that point, or anytime that reporting sways too far to the right or too far to the left, because reporters and journalists and podcasts have called it out in the past. And so I think that there's even as much as people want to say that President Trump is trying to completely control mainstream media, which in some ways has been scary. And I've even said that the cutting funding of PBS and some of the decisions that he made to me seem uncomfortable, suing New York Times, suing CBS, suing ABC. That seems like something that the president should not be doing. But I do think that we are in a position where you can't hide information, and people will immediately call out anything they think is kind of unsavory that's happening over at CBS now that we're all staring at the company to see not only what this new merger looks like, but what the news looks and feels like underneath new leadership. So I think that that's a good thing. Yeah,
and I suspect that Bari Weiss's decision-making will probably make people angry on both sides, which maybe is a sign that she's doing it right.
Right, exactly. You can't have an echo chamber.
All right, we have a lot more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.